Hey boys and girls, it's KnightStalker here. Welcome along today to my video on basic skills. Check it out, man. If you're a new player to the game, hopefully today I'm going to teach you a few things that you may not know already that you can learn and take with you into battles and things like that. If you're a veteran player, hey, well, thanks for coming along and watching the video. Maybe there's even one or two things for you too that you might be able to figure out. But yeah, this video is mainly for brand new or relatively new players. So without further ado, let's get along to our basic skills. The first thing I want to show you is there's a guy over here, and he is called the billeting officer. You can find them if you hold down the shift key, okay, the tab key, hold down the tab key in town, you'll be able to see where you want to go. And you can either click, either straight on here, and it will take you to the person, or you can click on here, on this little list. So the person we're looking for today is the billeting officer, because the billeting officer will take us to the training room. And the training room is where I'm going to show you a few of these things today that you can learn. Here we go, unit training. Let's get on in. Okay, so to begin our little basic skills practice today, we're going to bring in with us our beautiful paladins. Now, one thing you may not know is anything that is an upgraded unit, for example, men-at-arms upgrade into paladins, they keep all of their skills and they are all of the items on the unit node, so the little upgrades in the unit tree are applicable to both. So you don't lose them when you upgrade, they still all apply. That's beside the point. So, what you may have seen people doing when you're watching YouTube videos and things like that is spamming X as you move around. Why do people spam X? The first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go to settings. What you're going to have to do is go to keyboard and remove this. Double tap to cycle formations. You want that off. The other thing you actually may want to do is make sure you've got press and hold, steer with keys. Turn off your aiming assist as well. That is a pain. And there's my settings for that. So, now that we've turned off that, we can spam our X key without them changing formation. If you do that without turning off that function, well, then they will cycle their formations, these ones down here, F1, F2, F3. So why do we double tap X to move them around? The first thing is that, well, they stay together. They stay much better together than otherwise. Do you see how they're all staying together as we move around? If we were to, for example, press C, let's watch what they do if we press C to come to us. See how they spread out? Okay. The other thing that people sometimes do is the game will tell you to double tap C. That's a bad idea. Double tapping C is a bad idea. If you're going any further than a few steps, watch how they start to snake out and spread out. That leaves the unit extremely vulnerable. If anyone was to attack this right now, it would be very easy to destroy the unit. If we use X to move around, they don't scatter, they don't get caught on things like that paladin, and they just stick together. So when you're moving your unit around, we're using X and only X. We're not using C, we're not double tapping C. And those are the reasons why. So, if you hold down the X key and move your mouse, you'll end up with this little thing here that you can move around. Handy, right? So you can, instead of having to, say, move them all the way up to protect a stairway, you can simply be away from the unit and move them into protect a stairway or whatever else you're doing, whatever your plan is, right? If you want to turn them, you've got to hold the X key. Alright, so you can do this again. Hold the X key, move the mouse, and then it's either A or D. I know it tells you this in the game, but you'd be surprised how many people ask me these questions. It'll take a bit of practice. One of the biggest things is that if you're on your horse, for example, to be able to bring this out, rotate to a defensive position, place it before you even run out of movement on your horse. And that's something you can practice with in the battles as well, right? There we go. So with a bit of practice, you'll be able to do this without thought. They don't really fit there, do they? We can put them here. And that's how you'd do that. Hold X, move the mouse, press A and D. How handy. Right, job's done on that one. So, the last thing you've got, second to last thing I want to tell you about is holding V. If you hold V and move the mouse, they will attack to that position. Note how they move out of formation. The only time you would want to, see how they get caught? Same as if you press C or double tap C. Right? The only time you would want to do that is if you're cleaning up after a unit has attacked your unit, you've killed all but one or two, and you just want them to move towards a location after they finish the unit off. So they'll finish the unit off and then start moving towards. Now the way that might be useful, right, is you can tell them to, you can start moving yourself while you do that. Then they'll clean the unit up before they start moving towards you, and you can go back into your formations. So that's my basic skills on movement. To recap, spam your X key to move around after changing the setting. Holding X and moving the mouse will allow you to place them anywhere. Holding X, moving the mouse, and pressing A or D will allow you to rotate them. When you V move, you'll scatter, and is only good for cleaning up the last few living units and moving on. The other thing is, of course, is that if you do this and there's, let's say, you're fighting here, you've cleaned up, and there is another unit here, another whole unit. If you do V like this and move them away, that unit will be closer. Okay, so they'll go off and attack that unit. So holding V and moving is typically only used for range when attacking, and I'll teach you that soon. So that's the end of the little movement basic skills. I hope you learned something new. Let's move on now to attacking basic skills. So here we go again with our paladins. Let's learn about attacking. The first thing I want to talk to you about is XV micro. XV. Got it? Now the way that this is important is you move them in, attack, move them in, attack, move them in, attack. All I'm doing is switching between my X and V. And did you see how quickly they annihilate that unit? Same thing again. We're going to move them in with X. We're going to hit the V key. See these archers actually? That might be easier because they're a very light unit. If you use the V attack like we talked about in the movement thing, these guys will be able to clean it up very, very handily. Do you see how a scattered and light enemy is easily killed by holding down V, moving the mouse? And then once they're finished, they'll move on back down this way. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you about uses a ranged unit. What we can do is when we're moving, we're spamming X like we talked about. Or we could even move them forward. Hit the V key and they'll straight away abort the movement skill. What we're going to do with these guys is we're just going to move over here so that all these spears turn around and face my hero so that the archers can kill them. Now, do you remember how we placed that movement spot far out from the archers? And then we hit V, make them stop moving and then attacking. As soon as they finish killing whatever's in range of them, they were moved forward until they meet the spot where you initially placed them. So that's just something that you might want to use for your ranged units. There's a better way to use this. So this time we're going to move our unit up to here, and we're going to hit V, and they'll continue to move until they see the target enemy. Do you see how that they kept moving and they stopped as soon as they were able to see the enemy? So you press V in the middle of their movement. Again, once they finish the enemy unit, they'll continue to move to the location where you sent them. Eventually. Thanks, AI. Okay, so the next method I want to show you is called edging. And no, it's not what your mum does with Uncle Steve. Edging is when you hop your unit forward very slowly to obtain the maximum advantage, and this only works with units that are set formation, so shields, brace pikes, the likes. So the way edging works is, as you might expect, you edge forward slowly in short hops, very short hops, because when you've got harder units, it will take much longer to be able to kill the unit, right? So you've got to hop forward in little leaps and bounds there. Very, very small hops. Even these ones might be too big. And remember how we talked about clean up and walk back, holding the V key? Let's meet our unit back in the doorway. Ta-da! Next attack method I want to show you is called stutter stepping. Now this works with muskets who are either slow to aim or slow to fire. So we're talking about iron cap arquebusiers, we're talking about imperial arquebusiers, we are talking about, well, this will actually work with the Shenji grenadiers, provided that they're not in their repeat fire mode after chucking a grenade. It will not work with Kriegsrat Fusiliers because they aim very fast and they fire very fast. They're much better being left to their own devices. The concept is that you use the one key to aim and fire. As soon as they fire, hit the X key. Repeat. And you can get a very sustained volley of fire doing this. You can move left, right, you can move forward, and it's very devastating because the whole unit is firing in volleys. This is particularly effective at earlier levels, but it's certainly usable at higher levels as well. Pikes, this is perfect because we can shoot pikes, they don't have shields. Much faster rate of fire, even in close combat. Notice how they fire their volleys in close combat if you use this method. Alright, let's talk about a bit about control. So, the first thing I want to teach you about control is if you hold down your G key, you'll have all of your available special attacks here. So if you wanted to build siege equipment, you could build it nicely here. Obviously, I'm not going to finish building my Great Bombard because it's extremely valuable. But if you were going to put a trebuchet down, or, I don't know, a ballista, grape shot cannon, that's how you do it. Hold down the G key and radial menu. You'll also, in normal matches, have a trebuchet available here, which will put a circle down and blow stuff up for the attackers only. So, if you've been playing this game at all, you'll know that if you hit the control key, you get a little hand icon, and that will allow you to push siege towers, it'll allow you to push battering rams, and it will also allow you to send your troops back to supply. That's one that I get asked relatively often, surprisingly enough. And the thing is, you don't have to be able to see the supply to be able to do it. If you want your guys to go to supply, you can do it through walls and things like that. Okay, that can be very useful for example, let's bring our troops up here, and we're about to get charged by cavalry, I don't know, and we need them to run away immediately, but we can't, obviously, if we were to do this, it stops on the wall in front of us, right? Same with behind a castle wall. Instead, if we hit our control key and click on the supply point, even if we're not, strictly sending them to the supply point, even if we're not wanting them to replenish at the supply point, it gets them moving immediately. Very, very handy. It also gets to move them in the general direction so that you can catch up and start spamming X like we talked about. Let's have a look here. Emotes and all those sort of things. If you hold your middle mouse button, it'll bring up your emotes. I'll show you how to equip those in a minute. If you hit your middle mouse button and you right click, it will then give you these emotes, your actual physical emotes. How handy, right? How handy. So, what else have we got? The next thing is, I guess we'll send them to supply. Then we can go and... does this person want to be in my video? I don't know. Once we're at the supply point, there's something pretty handy I want to show you. You can use weapons that are of the same weight class as yours that are in your inventory at the start of the battle. So before you go into the inventory, before you go into the battle, it's not just the weapon that you're holding that you can use. You can also use any of the ones in your backpack that are available to your weight class. For example, we won't be able to use dual blades, we won't be able to use a longbow because both of those are light armor class. They're too light to be able to use these. We're wearing too heavy armor to be able to use those weapons. But we can use all of the weapons that are for heavy armor classes, which we have available to us here. Same as if you wear medium armor, you'll be able to select any weapons out of your inventory that are applicable to medium or heavy. And if you're wearing light armor, you'll be able to pick any of the weapons available to you at the time. There we go. You can also, if your horse dies or is badly injured, you can pick another horse. You'll get off your horse, you'll get on your horse. How handy. Nifty, hey? The last thing I want to talk to you about while we're in battle here is if you hit your Alt key, you'll get a cursor. See here? You can change the type of map available to you. If you hit the plus and minus keys at the top of your keyboard, so not on your number pad on the right of your keyboard, up beside the backspace underneath F9 and F10, you can use the plus and minus to enlarge and shrink the map. How's that for handy, eh? Let's go back to town, I'll show you those other bits and pieces. So lastly, just quickly how to equip those emotes. It's basically in your customization. Emotes go here, you have to earn them, just like any other attires or any weapons, you have to actually earn them to be able to show up here. And these are the ones here that are available on your second mouse wheel. On your first mouse wheel, second mouse wheel. Good as gold. Well, boys and girls, that is my basic skills guide, short and sweet, and hopefully you found something useful. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for coming to my channel.